Garrett had moved his family into their dream home. He felt like the luckiest man on earth. His wife Emma and their 5-year-old son Frankie loved their 2-story Georgia home, with a big backyard and a beautiful garden out front. The previous owners had been an elderly couple, so to say that the house was dated would be an understatement. All walls were covered in the ugliest wallpaper Garrett had ever seen, and the floors were decorated in a green carpet that made it look like moss was growing on the floor. Needless to say, Garrett and Emma started on renovations right away. The plan was to paint the walls in more calming colors and to put in some beautiful hardwood floors. Frankie would be starting kindergarten in a couple months, and his parents were worried that he would get bored with them spending so much time working on the house. Luckily, with a couple of days, it seemed that Frankie had made an imaginary friend, Tik Tok Tommy. Tik Tok Tommy was a boy around Frankie's age, who made up silly rhymes and occupied Frankie's time. Within a couple weeks' time, Garrett noticed a change in Frankie's mood. When he asked what was wrong, Frankie said that Tik Tok Tommy wanted him to do things that he didn't want to do. Garrett found this odd, but told his son just to tell his little friend no. He had thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how he was wrong. Emma's accident happened shortly after this conversation. His wife was probably the clumsiest woman he knew. She had been painting the upstairs hallway when she had stepped into a bucket of paint at the top of the stairs. She went tumbling down, breaking her leg and covering herself in yellow paint. If she hadn't been hurt, Garrett would have found it funny having to carry his now yellow wife into the ER. She had to have surgery, which left her in a big cast and unable to move much. The doctors prescribed her enough Percocet to tranquilize an elephant, but she only took a small amount before switching to Advil. The rest was put in their medicine cabinet, just in case she ever needed one. For some reason, Frankie blamed himself for his mother's accident. He was in tears every night and demanded to sleep with them. He said that Tik Tok Tommy lived in his closet and he didn't want to see him. Garrett would try to reason with his son that Tik Tok Tommy wasn't real, but he was wasting his breath. No one was sleeping well with the whole family in one bed, so Garrett came up with a plan. He decided to sleep in Frankie's room for one night to prove to him that Tik Tok Tommy was just a figment of his imagination. Frankie begged him not to, claiming that he didn't know how his friend would take it. Garrett calmed his worries. That night, he slept in Frankie's room. The bed was a little cramped, but other than that, Garrett found it easy to sleep. It was just past midnight when the sound of a door woke him up. He assumed his son had just come into the room to check on him, but when he opened his eyes, he saw that the bedroom door was still shut. The closet door was opened. He found himself wide awake when a pale little boy walked confidently from the closet. "So you're back." The boy stopped, staring at Garrett. Garrett was horrified. This didn't feel like a dream, and yet he was staring at this strange child that had appeared in his son's room. The boy was dressed in clothes from the early 1900s. He had black hair and large purple bags under his eyes. His eyes were piercing. It was as if he could see right through him. "Tommy?" Garrett whispered. This seemed to shake the boy out of his surprise. "Actually," he said, "it's Tik Tok Tommy." He paused before saying, "I expected my friend inside his bed, but I come out to find you instead." Garrett was reeling. "I'm his father. I came in here to prove you're not real." What are you?" he asked a very unhappy Tik Tok Tommy. "Tuberculosis took me out, but that's not something I want to talk about. I want my friend, but he's not here. Bring him back or there will be consequences, I fear." "What do you want with my son?" Garrett said more forcibly. "I am called Tik Tok Tommy because time goes by too fast. I've made other friends in the past, but they all grow up and leave me alone. I've decided that I won't have another one leave this home. Don't try to fight it because you cannot win. Stop thinking of Frankie as one of your kin. He is mine, and in this house he will stay, even after you decide to go away." With that, Tik Tok Tommy disappeared, leaving Garrett alone. He had a lot to discuss with his son. Garrett ended up on the couch that night, but couldn't sleep. This ghost boy wanted his son. His mind ran with ideas of exorcisms or helping Tommy get to the light. Their bank accounts were drained and they had nowhere to go, no family to stay with. He called a priest when the sun came up and the holy man came to bless the house. His wife thought he had gone mad. He didn't care. He had faith that this would send the spirit away. His son stayed silent, looking as if all hope was lost. When the priest left, Garrett noticed that his son wasn't with him. He searched the house before finally finding the little boy in his room, whispering to the closet. Garrett ran in and picked him up, swiftly carrying him away. He questioned what Frankie was doing. "You're only going to make him angry," Frankie said tearfully. "He's not going to leave and he might hurt you the way he hurt Mommy." Frankie realized his mistake the second the words were out of his mouth. "Tik Tok Tommy caused Mom's accident?" Garrett asked, horrified. "Why?" Frankie sighed before repeating the words. "If you don't listen to Tik Tok Tommy, then something bad will happen to your mommy," he continued. "I didn't listen and that's why Mommy had her accident." "What did he tell you to do?" Garrett questioned. "I'm not allowed to tell you. Just stop trying to get rid of Tik Tok Tommy and do what he says or people are going to get hurt," he cried before running outside to the backyard. That night, Garrett stayed in Frankie's room again. He didn't bother trying to sleep. As midnight came, so too did Tik Tok Tommy. He looked murderous. "I wanted my friend to be here, but instead once again you appear. You thought you could make me go away. I told you not to fight, and now you will pay. You'd be dead, but Frankie made a deal, so you'll survive his ordeal." "What deal did Frankie make?" Garrett asked frightfully. Tik Tok Tommy smirked. "I told him just to eat some candy, then everything will be fine and dandy. He's already held up his side of the deal, and now he'll stay with me for real." Garrett jumped out of his bed in search of his son. Panic was coursing through his veins. His wife woke up, having been sleeping peacefully in their bed. There was no sign of Frankie. Garrett noticed a sliver of light coming from the bedroom. He barged in only to find Frankie on the floor with an empty bottle of Percocet beside him. Candy. Garrett fell to his knees and checked for a pulse. He found one, but it was weak. He grabbed Frankie and rushed him to the car. He could hear his wife scared questioning, but there was no time. He jumped in the car and rushed Frankie to the hospital. Frankie had his stomach pumped. The doctor said just a few more minutes and it would have been too late. Emma took a cab to the hospital and the small family sat in the hospital room, thankful that Frankie would be okay. Garrett swore that day never to go back into the house. They stayed at a sleazy motel as they sold the house for half of what they bought it. They made sure the new owners didn't have children. Miles away from that little motel room sat a beautiful Georgia house. In the upstairs window stood a ghostly visage of a black-haired boy glaring down at the new residents of the house. No children, but he would wait. Oh, he would wait. He would find a friend to keep with him forever. He was used to that passing of time. After all, he was Tik Tok Tommy.